Hi crafters, Raquel here from Paints and Glitter, coming along with a project for Paper Rose Studio. I just wanted to let you know that today I have a tutorial for you using the Christmas Holly collection. So this is the 12 by 12 paper collection here. I have a separate video over at Paper Rose unboxing this so that you can see how gorgeous it is. It's very traditional, and you can see here some of the images. Absolutely beautiful. These have each of 12 designs total, so they're printed on 200 GSM paper, and it's really beautiful. You can also get a smaller version, and it's a little bit different. This is the Christmas Holly Basics, and in that video I share with you what the differences are with these collections, but they also have other elements you can pick up, and this one is one of the options. It's called Embossed die cuts, and you get 4 sheets. They're 6 by 8, and they're 4 separate designs, so they do not repeat themselves, and you'll see that in the samples that I make for you. I'm also going to be combining these with this set of rectangular stitched dies. So they are called stitched rectangles dies. And then this one here, which is called Merry Christmas Everyone metal die. I'll be using the Christmas out of this. And I'm also going to be using a scoreboard and some Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, along with some Craft Bond adhesive. In fact, I'll show it to you. It's from Elmer's, and I do like to use this when I'm using chipboard. And I'm going to be just using some tools such as this crocodile corner stub puncher. I don't know what else to call this, but I always forget the names. And I'm also going to be using a regular crocodile, which I don't have within my reach, but you'll see it in the tutorial. So if you want to follow along, I invite you to do so. I'm going to be making a super easy project, so let me give you a little sneak peek. And if you want to create something that looks like this that you can gift to your loved ones or just keep for yourself, then come along with me and I'll share with you how you can make one. For this project, we're going to be using 3 sheets of 300 GSM card in block to begin with, and this is going to be for our pages. We're going to be cutting some sheets down. This is 8.5 by 11, but we're going to be cutting it down to 6 inches. By 9 1/2. Okay, so that's going to be 9 1/2. Save these pieces if you would like to. We're going to do that 2 more times. Now take a sheet that's 8 1/4 by 11. You can cut it down to 8 1/4 to start with. Turn this around and cut it at 3 3/4. Get 1 more so that you have a total of 4 that are 3 3/4 by 8 1/4. You're also going to be needing a scoreboard. I have a Martha Stewart scoreboard here, and for the larger pieces we can start here, and we're going to be scoring these at 1/4 inch. And this is along the 9.5 inch side. Score that at 1/4 inch, 3 inches, and at 7 inches. Do this for all 3. For these thinner ones, score all 4 of them at 1/4 inch, 3 1/8, and 6. for these larger pieces, what you can do now is fold the 1/4 inch portion here as a mountain fold, or a valley fold actually, and then do the same for the second fold here. So you can do it as a mountain fold if you're folding everything away from you. All of them are going to be the same fold. So if you're looking at it from this direction, you should get something that looks like this. There's a very thin 1/4 inch border here, top fold, and this is going to be your bottom fold. So do that for all 3 pieces. Set these aside for a moment. Fold these in the same manner, where you're folding the 1/4 inch portion away from you. The second fold is actually going to be a valley fold. So it's going to be mountain, valley, and mountain. Okay, so you have a mountain fold, valley fold, mountain fold. Score all of the other ones the same way. Okay, you should have 2 that you're going to face the 1/4 inch portion to the right, and 2 which you will face the 1/4 inch portion to the left. Now take 2 pieces of 300 GSM card, cut one at 6 inches wide by 3 7/8 inches tall, score that at 1/4 inch on that 6 inch wide side, just there, and then fold and burnish that. Okay. So this is originally 6 inches wide by 3 7/8 with a 1/4 inch score line. Then do the same, but this time cut this down to 5 3/4 inches wide by 3 7/8, and then do the 1/4 inch score line and fold that over as well. We're now going to take one of these pages that we created and make sure that that 1/4 inch fold line is facing the top, and we have our 2 center fold lines there. We're going to take the longer of these 2 pages that we created with that 1/4 inch score line to the left. We're going to adhere it all the way to the left here. Okay. Okay, so that's going to look like this. Now that that's dry, we're going to take the second one, apply adhesive along that 1/4 inch tab that we created, and we're going to adhere that just next to the previous one. We're just going to butt that up right along the side of the prior one. So you want to make sure you space this out nicely. Okay, and when it looks good there, just flatten that down. Make sure that it doesn't have too much room, so that way it fits along the length of your page here. And then burnish that as well. We're now going to close this. This should be able to fold, and then this is going to fold over all of it, just like that. So we can set this aside for a moment. If you'd like to, you can use these types of clips just to help that stay closed while it's drying. The other 2, we're going to make the same exact way. So just take those narrow strips that you had created, and you're going to fold them the same way, but you're going to face them opposite one another in the page. Take one of the tabs, face it to the left. Just make sure that's fully burnished. Apply adhesive here, and then face that all the way to the left of this page. It might help to fold it all down. And to make sure you've gauged the distance properly, you can place the other one on the page first and make sure they're nice and centered. this is rather thick paper, but I'm going to just position it here. And the previous one's going to help me with my placement. Just going to kind of shimmy it out a tiny bit. Okay, so you're going to have pages that open like this, as you can tell, accordion-like. Okay, and these are going to close in the center, and then this is going to fold up, and this will fold down. And we're going to repeat the same step. So this time I won't explain it, I'll just do it. For this book, I'm going to create some super simple hinges. So I'm simply going to take my scoreboard, and I have a piece of card that is 3 7/8 inches tall. We're actually going to score that at 5/8 of an inch. That's actually going to end up being our cut line, but we're also going to score this at 1/4 of an inch because that's the portion that's going to adhere to our pages. So just cut this down to 5/8 of an inch by 3 7/8. And my paper was a little bit bigger, so that's obviously why I need to cut mine down. So you should just have a little strip that looks like that. Now go ahead and burnish that. You'll be doing this 3 times. And just adhere these to the back of each one of these along the left-hand side. Okay, so right on that back. And make sure you're adhering the portion that only measures 1/4 inch wide. So place your adhesive only on that little portion. And then adhere this right along that edge with that fold line facing the edge. And make sure it's butted up right to that edge there. If you're worried about the paper lifting, just use these clips. They really do come in handy so that it can hold your paper for you. And place that little hinge right along the edge that's going to face the spine. We're going to move along now to what will be the covers. For the cover, I've cut 2 pieces of cardstock. These are 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, 2 pieces, and then I have a spine piece that's 4 1/4 inches tall by 1 3/4 inches wide. You can tell I have adhesive on these already, and I'm going to be applying some paper to cover these pieces. So I just have some Swiss dot paper here that is in black, and this is just going to be the base, but I'm going to start by placing it pretty side down. And by the way, these 2 pieces measure at 5 1/4 by 7 1/4 for these larger ones, so they're an inch larger all the way around. Then for the spine piece, we're actually going to be using a piece that's a little bit wider. So this is actually 3 3/4 inches wide by 5 1/4 inches tall. And I'll explain that in a minute. We're going to apply some adhesive on the chipboard here. I'm actually going to be using stick adhesive because, believe it or not, this is a bond adhesive, and you can even use it with fabric, which is what I was going to initially use, and turned out the fabric that I picked out was fraying horribly, so I decided against it. But let's just center this now. This is exactly an inch larger than the perimeter of this piece, So we should have a 1/2 inch border all the way around. Make sure you burnish this when you apply it, and then go along the edges when you are burnishing this and press down. All along the edge, just like this. I've gone ahead and adhered those two pieces, and I'm going to adhere the spine portion now. And my mitering tool has grown legs, so I don't know how that happened, but I'm going to continue on with a ruler and my scissors. So this portion, you just want to make sure that you center it here. So you should have about 3/4 of an inch on both sides space here, and you can definitely use your grid on your background here if you have one. I think it's an invaluable tool. So I'm looking here, 3/4 of an inch, and let's see here, 1, 2, 3/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more to the right here, or maybe an inch on both sides if you're comfortable with that. And then make sure you have at least 1/2 inch on top and bottom. And if you have a spatula or a burnishing tool, be sure to use it. Just pressing there. And get that paper used to folding. Okay, I'm going to set this aside a moment. It's only going to take a moment for these to dry, but now I'm just going to take my scissors. You want to make sure that you do cut this at a 45-degree angle, but that you don't cut it too close to that corner. So that's where a mitering tool always comes in handy. But leave about a 1/16 of an inch away from that corner as you cut this. And you're going to rock this away from yourself so that you don't crack the paper by accident. And then use your burnishing tool to bring that paper over that edge. I like to do the longer edges first. Then in the corners, just push that in a little bit so that you don't get that paper poking out. Do the same thing. Just make sure you bring that in. Sometimes I just use my fingernail to bring in that tiny little corner. And then bring that over the edge. You may get a tiny imperfection on a corner. If you do, don't worry about it too much. I just cut it away and move on. Okay. Just have a tiny, tiny little bit there to cut away. Okay, but that looks really good. Let's do our second one. Here I'm going to be cutting this just slightly under the corner here, and then like that. So it's allowing this to have that little edge there, but I'm making sure that I don't surpass that too far down. So the angle might not be as sharp as a 45-degree angle, but you'll see in a moment why. Okay, so it should look like that. And I'll do that again just to emphasize my point. So just push those in really nicely. Okay. And now we're actually going to adhere these to each one of the covers on the inside. I'm going to butt that up against that edge and then just fold that over. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of room there created by the chipboard itself, but I'm just going to adhere that along that edge and then just press down, so that way you know that that chipboard is actually on the table and not lifted up or anything. Making sure that I hold this right up to that edge, top and bottom, and then fold it over. And this should have one continuous line. So if you place it on a grid, you should see that it's all even. Of course, if you want to place a ribbon here, you can. You can hide a ribbon on that edge. I think I'll hide it right under the matting layer. And you can cut this a little bit longer if you're uncomfortable with that amount of space, but because this is black on black, I think it's fine. It's not going to take anything away from it. Okay, so there's that. It's going to anchor everything really nicely. And for the spine, you have an option to cut the paper in the same color and continue with all one color throughout if you'd like to, or if you want to, of course, you can vary the color. Some people like the contrast. I'm just going to go ahead and cover this in the same black paper. Okay, so just for reference, you can place this on the spine before you mat these outer layers. I got ahead of myself, but I'm going to continue on. I'm going to place this right in the center, and this is 3 inches wide by 4 1/8 inch tall. And as you can see, it's all the same paper, so it's going to match perfectly. But to be completely honest, this should have gone on here first. And I'm very forgiving of myself and exercise a lot of grace when I craft. So I'm just going to place this right on top, equidistant side to side, and then I'm going to use my burnishing tool to apply plenty of pressure here, okay, right along that join, because it's probably not the best paper to be using in this case because it's shiny, but it's all going to be covered with a matting layer, so I'm not going to worry too much. But you do want to make sure that this can fold, and this is why it should have been adhered before the matting layer. So make sure that you apply liquid adhesive in this case, and that you also fold this as you're drying it so that it has some give. Okay, we're in business now. I still have to leave that to dry though. Need to give it plenty of time. Now typically I would advise that you let this dry overnight before you continue. And that way you get a really good bond on your paper. Because of time constraints, I won't be doing that today, but we're going to continue decorating this book. The next thing that you can do is decorate each one of the pages before placing it into the book, only because I really want to have some fun with the decoration process here. So we're going to take one of them. I've also cut out these gorgeous images from the paper collection just using a circle die, and I'm going to use these on the front of each one of these. And I've also decided to use the papers, of course, to coordinate just as a layer. So you can measure the width and height of each portion and then decide whether you want to have a border that is either 1/8 of an inch, a 1/16, or 1/4. That's completely up to you. But I'm simply going to be adding these. I think I like this side, and that's always the bigger decision is which side of the paper to use. But they're all lovely, so there's no wrong answer there. I'm applying the matting layer, and this is going to get that also that circle on top. But if you see that, it just gives it a cute little look there. I'm simply going to apply this on the top, but I'm going to apply this on that portion there. So I don't need adhesive on the entire image, just on half of that is fine. And I'm going to bring that up so that it's adhered right on top there. I'm going to open this, and on this bottom portion, I can now remove the backing and cover this bottom portion. Now for this, I also thought it would be fun to use a corner chomper. You may be familiar with them. So on the inside here, for instance, I've cut down these little rectangles to go on these portions, but if you see, I've gone ahead and used this. It's called a stub or scallop crocodile, and so I use the stub portion, and I'll be able to adhere these. So I'll just go ahead and do that right now, and add these right here on both sides. And of course you can use any number of images or the papers from the collection just to add a little interest there. On the inside I also have these other pieces. In fact, I still need one for this edge, but I want to show you the background here will allow you a nice portion there for a photo. I'm going to apply this one at the bottom first and add as much as you like. Just be conscious of the fact that it might create bulk. I make sure my project's nice and clean always. So I'm going to apply this one here. And again, you can just measure this out with a ruler and determine how wide and how tall you want these to be. If you're going to add magnets here, be conscious of the fact that you want to add them before you add your matting layer. And then on the top here, if you would like to, you can add double-sided adhesive here to fold that down. I suggest you do. It'll just make it a whole lot easier, and you can do that first if you want to, but there's no wrong order in which to do these things. But you do want to fold that over, and this is just to give you a nice firm edge on that. Whenever you're handling something a lot, a page in a book, it's always a good idea to have it be just really nicely finished if you can. And I think I want to add this one on this side. And I guess I added a wider border on those. but you can create a little pocket on these if you would like to. That's one thing I wanted to show you. But the embossed die cuts give you a lot of different options. So I thought it would be fun, for instance, to have a little pocket on one of these sides. And for that, you may want to use a smaller piece first to decorate that. You're going to add it right here, kind of toward the edge. And then we can add adhesive just on the top and bottom here so that this creates a little side pocket. So that can go right there to decorate that side. And I think it's going to look lovely. Just placing this one right here, which just goes to show you can always use your leftover little pieces. So I'm going to add that right there in the front. I think these images are just so pretty. It's hard to not want to use all of them in one page. But this little guy is going to go right here. And no need for dimensional adhesive in this case because of the fact that this is going to be closed. But as soon as you're happy with this being completely dry, and hopefully it is, then you can add your little notes or memories to this side, and that will fit perfectly there. And then you still have room to add little photos in here, a larger one in the center, or any little notes. And I'll be closing this one off as well, so I'm just going to add a little bead of adhesive, top and bottom, closing that off, and then very gently just clipping those together. So always use your little tools, and we're going to set this aside to dry a minute and move on to the next one. I decided to close these with a little eyelet and a piece of ribbon. This measures 27.5 inches. Not a number that's too important, but just long enough to wrap around this and create a little bow. So what I'm going to do is I've just decided to use this one here. I thought it was pretty in a flower shape, and also it's nice and bright red, just like the poinsettias. So I'm going to be using a crocodile just to select a little place here in which I can pierce the paper, whatever looks good. And I am using the smaller, let's see here, I might use a larger actually. it should match the size of the eyelet. Yep, so I'm going to use a larger size here of the hole punches. It's 3/16 of an inch. So I'm just going to match the previous one. And that's just to allow the little eyelet to go ahead and sit in that paper. Okay, like that. I'm now going to use this portion here. It has a little belly button, an outie is what I would call it, and it does tell you that that should feed through the top of the eyelet. And then on the bottom you have options for bases, so you pick the one that looks good to you depending on the size of the eyelet that you're using. I don't much know which base should be the one for this particular eyelet, but I'm going to give it a try and just give it a gentle squeeze. This tool is quite powerful, so all it needs is that, and that is now curled up there. And what I'm going to do is feed the ribbon through here, and then this is going to help me close this. I tried magnets and did not like it, so I might have edited that portion out of this video. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to keep it in the video or not, but it was a different option. I didn't like it, so I just took them out using my powerful resources. But this is going to now tie on the top here. This is what I wanted, and once I get my bow where I want it, in fact it could just go right in the middle. I think that would be really pretty. A nice grosgrain ribbon would look really pretty here as well. I'm just using what I have, and I have a lot of this. Okay, so there's that. I'm now going to cut the excess, which will be right about there. So maybe, let's see here, depending, I had measured it out to 27.5, so if you want to make it 23 inches, that'll be perfect. But I'm now going to tack this down on the back using double-sided adhesive so that ribbon doesn't go anywhere. And then I'm going to cover that with another piece of paper. Okay, so we now have both of these little wallets. Of course, if you want to gift these without the inner portion that folds in, and you just want it to be a little wallet that will hold one photo, then by all means you can just do the little corners here, which I'll be adding after the fact, and then have the little photo here, have your little stamped sentiment, and then write a little note on the bottom. So you can omit these portions here if you'd like to, or just leave these in here, adhere these close, and add a little gift card that you can slip through one of these. And I wish I had one on hand, but that would be an excellent little gift. And then tie it closed, put some little flowers on here if you would like to, like a 3D flower, just like that. And then omit the little tab, and you have yourself a nice little gift wallet that you can give to someone at Christmas time. So this has multiple uses. I like to create projects that are useful for more than one type of craft idea, so hopefully you can take something away from that. I'm going to take advantage here of the fact that this is dry so that I can go ahead and add these because I wanted to close these off. But I hope that this serves as inspiration for you. Cover the inside layers, mat those together. This one's the paper with the holly and berries. It's so very pretty. And on the other side it does have the wood grain. I'll be using the wood grain paper as a matting layer for this portion here. So that's why I selected this one for these outer layers. Just like that. And then here I am going to use the stub corners. I just thought that was pretty. And it also adds a little bit of a different flair to the page. So you can add that here. Hold it this way to make sure that this is nice and centered all the way around. Can now cover up the back using another piece of cardstock. I'll be using this one with the poinsettias and the lovely pine trees in the back. And this is going to hide that ribbon. And it can also either be a place for a small photo, or you could attach another piece of card here with a hinge and hide magnets here, so you do have an opportunity to extend this further. Once you have decided on the order of your pages, and I'm going to be placing the one that has the longer tabs in the center and the other two are going to be front and back, then we can add these to the inside of our book. So here you can decide the spacing of your pages onto your spine, and because the back is going to match perfectly with it being black, that I'm not going to go above and beyond to add yet another layer here. However, that would be an option, just to let you know. What I'm going to do is simply add these pages in the space that I've created. I'm going to start with the last page, just because it's going to be easier for me to then gauge the distance of the other ones. And you can tell the bulk is going to fit now perfectly in here. I simply need to add adhesive on that little tab. That's 3/8 of an inch wide, and I need to make sure that I avoid that fold. So I am going to keep this so that it's equidistant top to bottom and facing that fold line. I can now burnish that tab really well. Give that a minute or two. Don't rush this part. If you do, you're going to tear your paper. You don't want to do that. So if you need to create a little, for instance, a piece of chipboard and just cut that down to 1/8 of an inch, or if you happen to have a T ruler that's thin, you could definitely use that. I'm just going to eyeball this as well. Make sure it's the same height as the previous page. And give that a little bit of room there. So here I have to make sure that I keep this static for a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with the results of that. I now have some pieces to decorate the inside of this book, and I have this striped paper, and I also have this poinsettia paper. I think it's so pretty. Now here, because of the way that I had constructed this, and I had this unsightly line here, I'm actually going to try to cover that up now so that it's visible only to me. And this is how I'm going to do this. I'm going to apply this matting layer first. And this is going to go flat onto here. And I'm going to cover most of that now. So there's always a way. This is going to be topsy-turvy on purpose. Now I'm going to be using some foam adhesive on the second matting layer, thin foam adhesive on both sides here. And I've used the stitch rectangle dies from Paper Rose for this. I'm going to also add a little bit of wood adhesive here. I'm going to add a piece at the bottom as well, just making sure that is the bottom, so that this will not fall. If anything gets placed inside this little pocket, it won't fall out. Okay, so this one's going to be topsy-turvy from the prior one. Not too much, but okay, closer to that edge. All right. And in here I'll be able to fit any kind of photos or anything like that, and then also I have an opportunity to decorate that. Okay, this is our second little pocket. And we can keep adding little decorations to this if you want to. Just be mindful of the bulk that you're creating inside of this little book so that you're able to close it. But you get to see how easily those pages fit inside. But let's decorate the front. I'm going to be keeping this very simple, so I've chosen this paper here with this very green tone wooden background. Has the holly and ivy on the opposite side, and this is from the 12 by 12 collection, or no, I'm sorry, the 6 by 6. So this can go right on the front. Okay, make sure that's situated properly. Now this does have a little bit of a white border on the cardstock. If that bothers you a lot, just take a flat nib of a chiseled black marker, whether it be a Copic or any one of the good black markers that you might have that has a chisel tip, and take that flat tip and just run it along the edge of that paper and you'll be in business. Now, I have here another piece of chipboard that I cut down to match this little tag. I really like this and I wanted to be able to use it. So I did cut this out of the background of the paper, and that was the double-sided cardstock from the 12 by 12 pack with all of the little sentiments and little frames. I'm going to adhere this along this chipboard tag, and I'm going to use my good scissors to cut away these edges. Should always have a good strong pair of scissors. On here, I'm going to be adhering this Christmas from the Merry Christmas Everyone die set. I thought that would look so cute, and I'm keeping it simple. So I'm simply going to adhere this sentiment. It has a cute little curl on it, and it's so pretty, but this is going to go right on the front. I'm actually going to take my crocodile and cut the little hole here, matching the image. And just want to make sure that this is going to work. Okay, so on here I can thread yet again some ribbon, but what I want to do is, I suppose it could be smaller. It doesn't need to be very long, because what I want to do is thread this through and have it loop back like that, but I don't want this to be terribly long. Okay, once you're happy with that, cut away any excess, and I'm going to adhere this right on the front. Okay, just like that. I'm going to add one piece of foam adhesive here to help this pop up against that background, and then just some adhesive here. And that's going to go on that little corner, just like that. Super sweet. And I have this one, another poinsettia here. Just on this little corner down here. Okay, it's clean and simple, but very effective. Don't forget that you can always use the little cut-aparts also to decorate the inner pages here. In this case, I'm using this little tag, and it has these little horizontal lines there, depending, of course, on how you place it on the little pocket. And I'm going to cover part of it up using this little file folder that says Documented, just like that. I thought that would look really adorable there. And for the front cover, I've added these little gems to finish that off, but I'm also going to add a little metal poinsettia right here to the little tag using some hot glue. And I just thought that that would look super cute. Just holding that little piece of ribbon there, and I'll allow that to dry completely before I try to remove any excess adhesive. Then I think I might add one more little gem here for the letter I. But I love mixing and matching the colors because it matches with the reds and the poinsettias, and I just think it's adorable. So this completes this little book, and as you can tell, the pages are quite easy to put together. And of course, if you want to decorate this further, you can, or you can keep it clean and simple as I have done here. So this completes this little project. As you can see, I've just kept it super clean and simple. The little pages have just easy pockets to make, and they all have the same type of closure. Nothing too crazy here or too difficult to recreate, but by all means, if you like this type of project from Paper Rose, then leave a comment down below. I love to read them. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and also join the Paper Rose community group over on Facebook so that you can also share what you make. And as I always say, I do hope that you can be inspired and be blessed, and I thank you so much for watching.